And I'm going to call on Barry Shearman to move the motion.
Mr Holloway, I beg to move this debate on global road deaths. Mr Holloway, not many people realise this, but 3,500 homes this week will have a knock on the door, and a policewoman or a policeman will say to the person behind that door as they open the door, your son's dead, your daughter's dead, your mum, your dad, your uncle, your aunt. 3,500 people die on the roads globally every day. That is, at a conservative estimate, 1.3 million people die on the road in this, on this planet of ours. That is a disgraceful number. And Mr Holloway, you and I have been in this place, up to me longer than you, but you will recall that I have form in terms of being passionate about road deaths. And I'm going to be very careful today. I hope colleagues will stop me if I mention something that ends in safety, because I don't believe in that description. I think we should talk about road deaths and serious road casualties. And I think that brings us home to the reality of the fact that 3,500 people die on the roads. That's 1.3 million a year. According to the World Health Organization, road accidents are the 10th leading cause of death globally. The numbers killed in road accidents is just lower than deaths from tuberculosis, which is in 9th place. And it's forecasted it will be the 7th biggest by 2030. But unlike disasters and natural disease, it's absolutely a human-made problem, and every one of these deaths is avoidable. Every one of them is avoidable. I'll give way to the honourable gentleman.
In fact, it would be true to say that we should discontinue the term road traffic accident, because in fact that's not the case at all. Yeah. These are road traffic collisions.
Yeah. Ms. Holloway, I promised I would not call them accidents or talk about safety. But the fact of the matter is Mr. Holloway, as I say, I have form on this. Very early in my career, I saw two young people thrown from a car, dying by the side of the road. I never lost that image. They've been thrown out of a car because they weren't wearing seat belts. And when I came here, not only my only successful private member's bill, the only time I've come in the top 10 was my Children's in Cars bill that stopped children being carried unrestrained in cars. And after that, with a little bit of help from the right honourable member, the father of the House, the member for Rushcliffe, right honourable member for Rushcliffe, I managed to wangle past him a coalition that delivered adult seatbelts. We managed to get a vote of 72 majority the night before the royal wedding. And I'm very proud of the fact that that is the case. We then we took the coalition that succeeded in that and called it PACS, the Parliamentary Advisory Council for Transport Safety. I still have the privilege and the honour to chair that organisation. After 10 years, we formed the European Transport Safety Council as regulation was moving to Europe. And some years after that, I became chairman of the Global Road Safety Partnership with the World Bank. Of course I will.
I'm grateful to Honourable Friend for giving way. I think I'll have to challenge him, because he said if he mentioned safety, colleagues in the chamber should stop him. So I'm stopping him. Because he has a very proud record in transport safety, in terms of seatbelts, in terms of his own private member's bill, in terms of the role he played in setting up the Parliamentary Advisory Council on Transport Safety, and his recent role, which I'm sure he will be coming on to, leading the Inter-Country Legislators Committee at the United Nations. Safety is in his DNA, so I don't think he should be embarrassed by that.
I'm very grateful to my honourable friend who has campaigned with me for many years on this topic. And I think one of the things I'm trying to highlight today, Mr. Holloway, is that too many of us in this field have been doing it a long time. We do need fresh blood. We do need people coming in. We need to be as passionate about this field as we have been. And certainly my role as chair of global legislators for road safety, I will be, part of that will be trying to enthuse people in legislatures around the world to get involved, to understand that 1.3 million people a year is unacceptable in a civilized, any civilized society. And I'm only delighted that, when I was working on this, in this area some years ago, and a Swedish professor, doctor, said to me, we've got to get the United Nations to take this seriously, and then we could lift, the profile of what is going on our roads. And as Lord Robertson said in a presentation only recently, he said, more people forget, more people will be killed. If we carry on the way that road deaths are at the present level, more people will die in the 21st century on the roads than died in all the wars of the 20th century. That is a chilling statistic, Mr. Hollowbone, and I hope you agree with that. But I want to get on and say a little bit about Britain. In 2016, there were 181,384 casualties recorded in Britain's roads. 1,902 were fatal. That's 1,792 knocks on the door. Yeah, please, let's use that all the time. The knock on the door. The chilling fact that someone tells you a member of your family has died. And the long-term trend in numbers of killed and injured from the road accidents has been declining in this country, but has stalled since 2011. And actually in 2016, we had an increase. But to these figures, we should add the road deaths and injuries of Northern Ireland. Otherwise, the Minister, who understands these stats very well, would pick me up on that. But it is important that the United Nations now has road safety as one of its sustainable development goals. And why is that, Mr. Hollowbone? It is because the United Nations knows if you're going to take on poverty worldwide, you know that a death of a member of a family in the developing world usually means that family unit lurching into poverty or long-term disability that drags the family down in terms of its competence to live a decent life. And so these tragedies aren't just tragedies, they're not statistics, they're real families. And in the countries that we have knowledge of course, we know that we have probably an underestimate of the number of people dying. I was in Beijing not many months ago, and the interesting fact about the Beijing, as soon as the United Nations put a 5% reduction target as a goal, mysteriously, every year 5% reduction appears in the Chinese statistics. So what I'm saying, Mr. Hollowbone, is these stats may be worse than even we are arguing today. The fact of the matter is, Mr. Hollowbone, that I've just come back from New York where we had a General Assembly debate on deaths on the road. And it was a very good debate indeed. And a motion was passed in terms of an action programme that I think will be very useful if we take it seriously. And what I'm going to be arguing today is that here we are, the United Kingdom that has great knowledge about transport safety, has great expertise, has quite a good record, not the best in the world, sometimes Sweden is better than us, but the fact is that we have a good record and enormous knowledge. We have research centres, we have research evidence. We actually do know very well how you can reduce the number of accidents on the road. And we do it, Mr. Hollowbone, not by, a lovely gesture. I've been in this field long enough to know you only got to knock on the door of an insurance company and they say, I will give you a little flashy thing that you can put on your bicycle when it's dark and that, it will illuminate you and it will save accidents. Or another company will say, I'll give you lots of money to have a brand new version of the Tufty Club where you train all children about road safety. Neither of those things have been, in terms of the research of evidence, been very successful at all. They may be quite fun to do, but they are not the way in which you tackle these schemes. I've worked very closely with the Safer Road Foundation, and they know very well the efficacy, and all the research shows this, the efficacy of low-cost engineering schemes. You know where you're having accidents, you modify the landscape, you do something about a particular dangerous junction, and that low-cost engineering scheme is the best a return on your investment that you can possibly have. But we do have a knowledge of the research across the world. I also chair the International Committee for Road Safety Research, which is an attempt to link all the researchers on this planet of ours to each other so we know what each of us is doing. Work very closely with India, for example, Mr. Holloway. You have sharing the information, finding out which research can help one nation who's done the research, passing on quickly to the others. But what I want to come back to, the Millennium Sustainable Development, we didn't have a Millennium Goal for road safety, but the Sustainable Development Goals adopted by the United Nations changed the whole framework. We're now being taken seriously, and we now need to work very hard indeed to make sure that we achieve something substantial. It was in September 2015 at a UN Heads of Government Summit, the UK accepted the Sustainable Development Goal target, 3.6, to halve road deaths by 2020. And this was welcome, but rather paradoxical, as our government had failed to adopt a target for the UK ever since 2010. And the Minister and I get on very well, and he knows in a debate like this will nudge him again on two things. One, to have targets again, to accept targets in the UK, and also we do need a national centre for investigation of all road accidents, particularly road accidents involving a road death. So we know that we're also holding back casualty reduction at home, because targets they're not a solution, but they do indicate ambition, commitment, and they influence where we put the resources. And when the government has targets for issues such as reducing suicides, hospital waiting times and net migrations, it's hard to see the logic of having an accident death reduction goal as well. And indeed.
Honourable Friend's making a very powerful point, and one that many of us have challenged the government over since 2010. Doesn't he agree with me that it is completely anomalous that the government has signed up to the Sustainable Development Goals for the reduction of road casualties, deaths and serious injuries internationally? It has signed up to the European Union's targets for reductions of road deaths and serious injuries, but won't sign up to reductions and targets and reductions of deaths and serious injuries within the United Kingdom.
I take that point. As I said, the Honourable Gentleman is a great campaigning friend of mine, but I want to stick to today. Mr. Holloway, I didn't know whether to apply for this debate under this department or the International Development Department. But I do hope what I'm doing today is to stimulate a relationship between the Transport Department in this country, which is very good, I'll give it its due, and it's got a minister that cares about this, and having him working with the International Development team to come through with proposals that could make a bit good, using our experience, using our research, using our knowledge to help people around the world. It's one of the best investments that you're going to make if you're going to help a developing country at this present moment. Just look at this. Road crashes are the #1 killer of young Africans aged between 15 and 29. The #1 killer. And certain countries just leap off the page in terms of Tanzania and South Africa in terms of being well above where they should be, given the size of their population, of the nature of their roads and the number of people driving cars and two-wheel vehicles. But much of this is heartbreaking real cost. Road crashes frequently kill or injure household breadwinners, causing loss of income, increased costs such as caring for a disabled victim, and tipping people into deepest poverty. Now, the Overseas Development Institute, the ODI, reports Securing Safer Roads research, including in-depth analysis in 3 cities, Nairobi, Mumbai and Bogota, led by the Overseas Development Institute, the ODI, and the World Resources Institute, the WRI, found it is the poorest sections of society who bear the brunt of traffic-related injuries and death, and that both politicians and the public tend to blame individual road users for collisions rather than policymakers or planners. And can I just make this really at the heart of my remarks, Mr. Holloway? The fact is, in many ways, cars have become much safer. You know, cocoon. My wife recently changed her car because she wanted a hybrid car. It has automatic collision avoidance. It has 16 airbags. Cars are safer and getting safer, thanks to some of the great work that's been done on NCAP by a number of people worldwide. Cars are getting safer. The people in danger are the VRUs, the vulnerable road users, the pedestrians, the cyclists, the people on two little powered vehicles across the world. The vulnerable road users are the people that we've really got to worry about. And in terms of places like America, which in fact Mr. Holloway is slipping back on his success, you know, because if you have good laws and if you have sensible research-based activity from the government, and you things like seatbelt legislation, and you also make sure that people conform to those laws, that you don't let people off, you don't nicely take a little bribe to stop, you know, because people don't want to be caught for speeding or for drunk driving or whatever. In the United States, because the states have very different rules and laws and regulations, they don't have rear seat belts in many of their cars and regulation on that. They are slipping behind. But it is that mixture of wise laws, good science-based answers, and making sure that we make sure that these laws are obeyed. So, how confident is the government that its contribution to action prevention overseas, the money that we're put is going to be well spent? Mr. Hollowbone, there is a new United Nations Trust that we established last week in the United Nations. It's got every possibility of being a very good and substantial fund. It will be partly put in by the FIA put in the first £10 million, other companies will put in, but I think it will be very dangerous, given the World Bank experience I had with the Global Road Safety Partnership. We give too much emphasis just on the private sector. Individual governments must come in, and I hope the British government will come in, put money into the United Nations Trust, but make sure that there are strings attached so that we know that the money flows to evidence-based good ends. So, Mr. Hollowbone, I don't want to keep the debate going too long, but I want to finish by saying this. We need to support the development of a road accident strategy across the world. We need to highlight what the Overseas Development Institute report says. We reframe road safety in public debates, making connections with issues that people care about, such as the economy, about equality, about education, and build alliances at all levels of government, including local, regional and national. And we also must produce, at every country, a dedicated road safety plan with short, medium and long-term objectives. I have the privilege to work with some very good people on this, Mr. Hollowbone. Etienne Crew in the World Health Organization in Geneva has been inspirational in the work I've done. David Ward and the team from his organisation that produces the wonderful report, the Manifesto for Road Safety Global Network, and this is from for road safety legislators, and that comes out of Towards Zero Foundation. So there are some very good people, Mr. Hollowbone, in this area. But at the end of the day, we must make sure that we have, as the World Health Organization says, we must have a policy called Save Lives, and it must be based on an integrated safe systems approach, and the WHO report recommends 22 priority interventions in 6 key areas of speed management, leadership, infrastructure, vehicle safety, enforcement, and post-crash survival. So, I end by saying, Mr. Hollowbone, we know the answers. We can stop these 1.3 million deaths. We can reduce them dramatically if we work together, if we work on the basis of good laws and laws that are enforced fairly and squarely across every country that we work with. We have an enormous opportunity to save lives and to save communities and save families. Let's go for it.
The question is, this House has considered global road deaths.